Hey everyone, welcome to the Career Journey Podcast, where we explore exciting careers and how to get them from the people who've lived it. I'm your host, Brittany Avila. Thank you for tuning in and enjoy. Hey everyone, welcome to the inaugural episode of Career Journey Podcast. I'm Brittany Avila, your host for this podcast, and this intro episode is just going to be a short explanation of what this podcast is, why I started it, and a little bit about me. So this podcast is called Career Journey, and it's just that. It's studying or listening to people's career journeys, how they got from point A to point B, what they wanted to be when they were kids, if that changed at all, if they decided on something else, where they were in their undergraduate careers in college, if they even went to college, all the way to exploring where they are now, what their current career is. And then we even ask what they predict they might do in the future. So some people have stated that they want to completely switch and do something different. Others want to stay at their current job, or some people just seriously don't know. And so this podcast is just going to listen to people from a variety of careers. So I am personally in teaching and psychology, and so we might hear a little bit, especially in these beginning episodes, from people in that field. But we explore all types of fields. We have also a graphic designer, we have people in teaching and clinical psychology and neuroscience and ed technology, and hopefully as we go through, we'll just have a ton of different other careers. I don't want to focus on one career specifically. I think that it's really beneficial and really exciting to hear about all types of careers, especially ones we're not really well acquainted with already. And so I started this podcast because the career process and the career market is messy. It's confusing, it's difficult, it's hard to navigate. It's even just hard to figure out what you want to do. What career do you even want? That question took me a really long time to decide. And up until I got my current job, I still was never really 100% sure what I wanted to do. And even now in my current job, which I love and I want to do in some iteration for all my life, I'm not 100% sure where this career is going to take me in the future. I definitely didn't think in undergrad that I would be starting a podcast. Or a podcast specific about career advice. I didn't think I was knowledgeable enough to give career advice, which now I do for a living, because I thought that I didn't understand what I wanted to do, and I thought most people did. I was under this impression that people knew what they wanted to be, even if they changed from what they wanted to be as kids. I felt like going into college, everybody had their major figured out. When I went to orientation, I was of a select few that were undecided. Most people seemed to have it all figured out, and I just didn't. And now, in my current career of teaching and advising students, I realized that I was not alone. A lot of people don't have it figured out. Even those students that I saw that had picked majors, most of them didn't have it figured out at that time. And so I started this podcast as a way to share that story. I want other people navigating this process to know that it's okay not to know 100% what you want to do. It's completely fine to think of other factors in your career, to think about where you want to live or how much money you want to make, or whether you have to consider a significant other, kids, parents, siblings. All those decisions go into deciding a career. Even in one of our early episodes, we talked to somebody who one important thing about them deciding on a job was the office space, the environment, just having stuff close to you that makes you feel comfortable. And those things are really important in looking for career. And I didn't know that. I have this idealistic view that you just know what you want to do and you go do that and you don't really think about everything else. And so this podcast came out of that. It came as a response to a lot of students every day coming to me confused about what they want to do, not knowing where to look, how to figure out what to do, how to do that. Even if they know kind of what they're supposed to do, they don't necessarily always know the steps you need to take to get there. And college is a great place, but it has what we call kind of this hidden curriculum. We teach a lot of good content. We teach all about kind of psychology, art, math, science, etc. But we don't really teach explicitly how to find a career, how to get that career, how to write a resume, how to write a job application, where to find a job, who to talk to. Do you need to network? Do you need to get a PhD? Do you not need a PhD? All those questions that students ask me every single day. They ask me in part of my teaching duties, they ask me in my advising duties, and questions that I didn't know where to go for those answers. So now I know, because it's my career to know, I know that there are resources for this on campus. There's academic advisors whose job is to answer these questions. There's career centers on campus that are designed to help you with resumes and finding jobs and navigating that. But I was a first generation student. I didn't know that those things existed. I didn't know that I could use them until well into my graduate career. And honestly, some resources from campus I didn't know existed until I was in the job and people told me that I should be recommending them to students. And so that's why we call it kind of a hidden curriculum, because you have to know these things and you have to navigate. College is really this time where you're supposed to be figuring out how to get a job. And I find that for some people, it's hard to figure that out. And I prescribe advice to students all day long, and I tell them, this is what the career looks like, or at least this is what our career looks like. This is the things you need to do. And every day faces just look overwhelmed, and they hear what I'm saying, but it's really hard for them to figure out what that means for them and for their life and what their next steps are and how to do it exactly. And so I always had this idea that, I know from personal experience, I know from psychology literature, that stories are so much more impactful than telling someone something. If you can have kind of that narrative story. I mean, think about all the shows you watch. Every time they want to get a point across, somebody dives into this ridiculously long monologue about a story that probably never happened to them, right? Stories are just really a lot more impactful for people to hear. And so that's what this podcast grew out of, an idea of, people need to know how other people get into their careers. They need to know, how do people figure out what they want to do? How do you navigate this whole process? And I just figured that stories from people who've lived it is probably going to be a better way to listen to it than people just telling you what you're supposed to do. So, for example, in some of our first few episodes, we have people that, wanted to be something from the time they were young and just kind of figured out their niche within there and how to get into that and navigate it. And then we have people that completely switch. They wanted to be something, they went to undergrad for that, they majored in it in college, and then all of a sudden one day they tried the job out and realized they didn't like it and had to do a 180 and find something else. And what happens when you're experiencing that? What happens when you just don't know? Like me, I took 2 years to figure out a major, and I still wasn't completely convinced of that major and whether it was the right choice for me. And it's just really helpful, I feel, to listen to other people's stories and journeys to realize that you're not alone. That's everybody's career journey is so different, and some people are going to have those straight lines. They're going to know exactly what they want to do. They're going to figure out exactly what degree they need to get to have that job, and they're going to do it. And that's wonderful. And we're going to have people on that tell that story and tell exactly how did they figure out exactly those steps that they needed to take? How did they figure out what degree they needed to? How did they find a job? How did they navigate that first job? What did they do at that job? How did they know they wanted to quit a job and get another one? And then we're going to have other people whose stories are just completely not a straight line, that did something, completely switched to a new career and in a different area, or stories like mine where it's kind of straight line. I went from one thing to the next like I was supposed to, but just a lot of confusion along the way, just a lot of uncertainty, a lot of hesitation, a lot of not knowing if you were doing it right. And so, again, this podcast just started as a way to help people not feel so isolated in whatever their career story might be. Another reason I started this is to help people figure out their own journey. So maybe you are listening and you find somebody has something similar to you that kind of sparks your interest, or you hear about a new career you'd never heard of before on this podcast, and all of a sudden it's, oh, wait, that sounds like something I might want to do. Or just listening to other people's journeys and, again, not feeling so alone in that confusion or hesitancy or whatever it may be, or being able to answer your questions. So maybe we'll have somebody on that's in the career fields you want, and they can help you give advice for how should you find that career? How should you navigate going through the different steps? And how do you find a job in that career? What type of degree do you need for that specific career? So looking at all those different things. I also really want this podcast to enable a sense of community in us all. We're all either looking for careers, in careers, getting out of them, switching them. So careers are just something that we're always kind of embedded in. And I'd like us all to come together and help each other understand what's going on, answer questions, ask questions, etc. So I did create a forum on our website, which is careerjourneypodcast.com, where we can do just that. People can share their own stories. People can ask questions of others in certain careers. You can ask questions about how to figure out your career, and I'll answer. Other people will answer. There's also a contact form on there. If you have specific questions for people in certain careers, you can ask that and you can submit that to me. And if I have a guest on in that career, I'll ask them specifically what the audience questions are. So coming back to the sense of community where we're all in this together and we're all helping each other, that's another reason that I started this podcast. And that's pretty much it. Mostly, again, just that we're going to explore a lot of different career journeys from different careers, from people with different types of paths. So we might even do the same career multiple times, and you'll hear different stories, and you get to know that even with the same job and the same career, people get to that path a lot differently. And so being able to compare different journeys to the same end point, I think, is a really interesting take. So I know not everybody's going to be as excited as I am to listen to stories, but hopefully you have fun and hopefully you enjoy listening to other people's journeys and how they got to where they are, and whether or not that's straight or windy or so on. It's just been a lot of fun to listen to how people got to where they are. So please enjoy this podcast. And again, reach out on the website, careerjourneypodcast.com. If you have any questions, feedback, or stories you want to share, please do. And I look forward to seeing and hearing from you all later. So thank you and enjoy. Thank you so much for listening. Head over to our website at careerjourneypodcast.com for more info, the latest episodes, and to join the discussion about careers. See you next time.